Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. Let's continue, shall we? I want to live happily. That's my only wish, surrounded by my precious friends, spending our days enjoyably. Only that. I don't wish for anything more than that. Rika-chan, I don't want to die. The girl stoic as ever let those last words slip in the end. Eventually, we were discovered by some drunks. The girl, as well as I, were dragged back to the festivities. Everybody was completely drunk, so even when they saw my head completely wrapped in bandages, they wouldn't let me leave. Well, certainly if I was in good enough condition to slip out of the hospital, it must not be that serious. The girl was mingling with everybody, being pampered like a kitten. Her expression was adorable, nothing like the one from just before. Predicting her own death and whispering that she didn't want to die. Having said that, having a silly and lively conversation like this, it was hard to believe that these people were the core of an extremist resistance group. Even if it was a shell of its former self, it was a festival where people in the village gathered, so the 20-some-odd folk here should have included some of the village executives and other important members. Among those, there was no doubt that there were members that were at the Sonozaki Family Council in attendance. Meaning, even if we never met face-to-face before, there were people here who knew my identity. In a small village like this, they knew the faces of all the villagers that lived here. That's why, without even saying anything, it soon became obvious that I was an outsider. But they actually seemed interested by that, asking me all sorts of questions about Tokyo, drinking while musing on the faint relationship the city had with the villagers, and empathizing with the rather meager environment. The confidential talks with the minister were finished. His grandson was in police custody. Everything was over. I might not have to be put in another perilous situation. To me, they were only my adversaries because of my job. Outside of that, there was no reason I couldn't be friendly with them. The next time I visited this village, would it return to being a tranquil and beautiful place? If that happened, I might be able to take a relaxed walk around the village with her again. My cup was once again filled to the brim with beer. By the time I was able to get away, it was the middle of the night. The girl had at some point disappeared. It seems that her parents had told her to go home and sleep when she let out a large yawn. The old folks, who had absolutely no remorse for making an injured person hang out with them, told me as much as they laughed. I was just there drinking, so I had thought to help a bit with the cleanup. However, my help was refused on the grounds that I was a guest. On top of that, they had a car prepared to take me back to the hospital. Thank you, I appreciate it. Wait, is the driver drunk? Oh well, it's a not busy road in the middle of the mountains. I mean, it's not like we're going to get a car accident or anything. I was sound asleep until we reached the parking lot of the hospital. Thank you, I was really tired. The front door of the hospital was naturally locked at this hour. Well, crap. I wandered around bewilderedly, searching for a back entrance until somebody on the night duty found me and let me inside. Hi. So what are you doing outside? My bad. Where were you this late at night? Dr. Irie was worried, you know. I'm sorry. I wanted to use a payphone, and then I got lost, and then I wound up at some shrine in the middle of the woods with a bunch of drunk people. But they had pizza and Pepsi. It was good. Sorry for the trouble. I was held up by some people having a festival at the shrine. Oh, they did say something about everybody in the town council getting together for a drink. My condolences. Are your wounds alright? I think. They're throbbing a bit. It's probably because of the alcohol, I think. Oh, that's right. The detective that was with you wanted to get in touch. Oops. I kept Ushi-san waiting. Yeah, my bad. I glanced at the clock. No matter how you looked at it, it was way too late to call him now. I'll apologize to him tomorrow over the phone. Yeah, let's let him sleep. Besides, even if I called him now, what could I say? I'm about to go to sleep myself. Heck, Dr. Irie's probably sleeping. Doctors do have a life outside of the clinic. I returned back to my hospital room and slipped into the bed that was still unmade from the time I went outside. Oh, that's no good. I have to turn off the lights. But my weariness had cut the cord powering my body, lulling me into a deep sleep. Akasaka is sleepy. Night-night. Mother's Diary 1, 2, and 3. Prophecy at the beginning. Heard someone's prediction. There was something I didn't like about my child. I first realized it when I started writing these things down. They never warn you about it in any books about raising children, but they aren't just a plaything. If they aren't able to feel loved even when they're not doing exactly as their parents want them to, then those parents are failures. This wasn't something like that, though. How can I say it? It's so probably harder to express with mere words. I just want my child to be average. As long as they weren't falling behind, there wasn't any need for them to excel at something. As long as they acted appropriately for the age, I would have been fine with it. But my child had been different ever since kindergarten. While the children in her class were running around in excitement about the field trip the next day, she only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the other kids broke the equipment for the athletics festival and were apologizing fervently, she only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the teacher was reading a fun picture book, only she wasn't smiling. Even if they all got to eat a delicious bento, only she wasn't happy. If it was only this, it would still be in the realm of understanding. However, what I don't understand about my child is that if the aforementioned situations happened again, they'd now act in a manner befitting their age. I don't understand the principle behind that. As a parent, why were they indifferent about that field trip, but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about the picture book, but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about that bento, but happy about this one? The former and latter in each situation seem exactly the same to me. There was even times when I thought the former one was even better. I don't understand that child's feelings. During parent-teacher meetings, the teacher always says the same thing, and I would always respond that I don't understand my own child, and we would mope together. My husband, always the optimist, once said that a young child's feelings are different from an adult's, so if there were some things we didn't understand, we shouldn't worry about it. I lament his lack of urgency. One day, when I was in a good mood, I took the effort to prepare a menu that my child would enjoy, but she only smiled with a vague expression of disinterest. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. On a day when the weather was nice, the laundry I had just hung up to dry was blown by a large gust of wind, causing the entire line to fall down. But she watching me trying to pick up the laundry in a panic, stood there laughing. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. I think the same sort of thing happened countless times. Before I knew it, my child was only able to look at me with an indifferent expression on her face. I regret the fact that I've been a bad mother. Thinking I should regain her trust, I thought to get it back little by little, with some slight interactions. Seeing her do some sort of craft work on the veranda, I called out to her. "These past few days have been nice and sunny. The air feels nice, doesn't it?" That child, with the indifferent look on her face I hated so much, looked up at me for a moment, then without a word returned to immersing herself in her craft work. Up until now, I would have hit her on the head just for that. I held myself back. "What are you making?" "Is it a doll?" "A weather charm." That child was using inserts in the newspaper to definitely make some weather charms. The forecast hadn't called for rain, but that child in her own way was praying that these sunny days would continue. Being able to understand my own child for the first time in a while, I couldn't hide my own happiness. Bringing out a ball of yarn, I began to hang my child's cute weather charms from the eaves of the house. Aha! It's no good, Rika. The heads are too heavy, see? They've become reverse weather charms now. If they're like this, they'll call the rain instead of the sun. When I started to take them down, my child tugged at the hem of my shirt as if to stop me. That's because I made them to be upside down. They're fine. But Rika, if they're upside down, they won't be a charm that calls for a sunny day, you know. I was making a charm for it to rain, so they're fine. I desperately suppressed the emotions welling up inside me. I was trying desperately to understand. My child. Oh, I see. The morning glories in the garden were starting to get a little wilted from all the sun. So you wanted some rain, right? That child turned me with the expression that I hated the most. I got bored of the clear weather. I don't understand. I don't understand. I just can't understand that child. During the family council, she buried herself under Oryu-san's futon again. Oryu-san dotes on her unwaveringly. No matter whatever insolence my child commits, she doesn't mind. It's almost as if my child is a kitten or something. Oryu dotes on her exactly like you would with a kitten. As her mother, I chided her for doing that, until Oryu-san had said 3 times that it was fine. I chided her as a formality. Of course she never lends an ear to any of my chidings. Knowing that Oryu-san's standing was far above mine, she behaves like that. I don't like the cunning that's unbefitting of her age, either. In any case, not only Oryu-san, but the rest of the old folk in the village spoil her too much. One day I was surprised. By chance, on the way back from some shopping, I saw her by herself, just outside a candy shop. My own child suddenly grabbed a snack, opened the package right there, and then started eating it. She didn't make any attempt to pay for it, and she didn't even think of looking around. It didn't even feel like she was shoplifting, more like she was brazenly eating snacks that was offered to her. When I began to admonish my child, the elderly shop owner appeared and covered for her. The owner gave the ridiculous excuse that he had said it was okay for the child to eat any of the snacks out by the entrance, so it was fine. When I tried to pay for the snacks that my child ate, the owner refused to buy money. During that exchange, more old folks had suddenly gathered around, and it began to feel like I was the one in the wrong. The elderly people all put their hands together and reverently in front of my child and repeatedly voiced their respects. I was born into the Furude family. So it wasn't like I didn't know why she was being treated specially. When I was still young, it was something I heard often from my grandmother. If by chance the child that I gave birth to was a girl, that child would be the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. All the older folk believe that she's the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama and spoil her rotten. And not only did they spoil her, but they even told her she was the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama, that she had a divine power, and threw all sorts of strange folk tales her way. So she may have begun to believe herself that she was a special existence. I went around that it wasn't good for her upbringing, so to stop telling her these strange things. But there was no unrooting the elderly people's deep-seated superstitions. I told my child not to listen to him, but it ended up being that she stopped listening to me. Between all the old folks in the village who would dote on her, and myself who only scolded her, there was no wonder who she would listen to. There was no mistaking that the reason she had become strange was because of the elderly villagers. There was no doubt that they had shoved her full of strange folk tales and superstitions since she was young. If it wasn't for that, there was no doubt my child would have been cute and normal. One sunny parent-teacher day, there was a cooking class, and my child was making curry rice with a practiced hand. While the other children her age were awkwardly using kitchen knives, the child was wielding hers deftly. The teacher approached me with a smile on their face, saying it must be the result of learning it at home. I managed to play it off with a vague smile and nod in response. That was because I had never once taught my child how to make curry rice. Even then, she was peeling vegetables with a practiced hand, adding them into the pot in the order in which took longer to cook. For a normal parent, they might unintentionally clap their hands together, happy at their child's actions. But in my case, it was different. There was no mistaking that somebody had taught her how to make that curry rice when I wasn't taking care of her. Thinking that, I quietly fell into an unpleasant mood. When I asked, it seemed she could also sew and do laundry. I had never taught her to do those things. And again, never saw her do it around the house. Be it cooking or sewing or the laundry. Again, that was probably because the elderly villagers taught her all sorts of rubbish when I wasn't looking. And not only that, they probably taught her all sorts of strange superstitions, trying to prop her up as the living incarnation of Oyoshira-sama. I said as much to my husband, suggesting that we should keep our child away from the elderly folk. But my husband, who was in the position of being the head priest of the Furude shrine, had little power against the elderly who supported it. He took the rather uncommitted stance of saying that as long as she was being doted upon, wasn't it fine? I argued against that she was our child, and should be a completely normal girl. That what the elderly were expecting, that she was the living incarnation of Oyoshira-sama, was simply odd. The elderly villagers believe that a child has divine powers. We would discuss the weather for the following day, but there would be many times when I left the house without an umbrella and came back soaking wet. Rather than having clairvoyance, that was just secondhand knowledge from her watching the news all the time. The things that she knew that she shouldn't have known were just the result of people who were trying to indoctrinate her, and the people who were gossiping getting together in the village. However, there certainly were days when everybody thought it was going to be sunny all day, and that child would certainly not go out without an umbrella. It would occasionally rain, and in the end, we would be saved. There might also have been times where Rika knew of major accidents in foreign countries, faster than the news did. I thought she must have heard it break over the radio or something, knowing things she shouldn't have. Something like that was in front of me right now, wasn't it? That child was making curry rice when there shouldn't have been anybody who taught her how to. No, that couldn't possibly be the case. Somebody had taught her, indoctrinated her. When I wasn't taking care of her, somebody had indoctrinated Rika with something. Furude-san's curry is absolutely splendid. I'll give it a gold star. Nipa! Where did you learn to cook, Furude-san? At home? Yes, at home. The other parents in attendance were oppressed. Lies, all lies. I didn't teach her anything. Who was it? Who was it? Who was the person who had completely indoctrinated my child? She was my normal, average daughter, not the living incarnation of Oyoshira-sama. Detective read all the tips in himatsubushi. Midsummer, 1985. Sir, we're preparing to land. Excuse me, but will you please fasten your seatbelt? It seemed I had fallen asleep inside the plane. I was finally awoken from my slumber by the stewardess. I only had carry-on luggage on top of it being a domestic flight, so the time between disembarking and entering the lobby was almost non-existent. Arriving at the lobby, I glanced around looking for Oishi, and was met with a familiar gruff voice calling out to me. Akasaka-san! How many years has it been? It's been a while, hasn't it? Oishi-san, it really has been a long time. Oishi clapped his hand down my shoulder, celebrating our reunion. Kasuga-san, you're looking pretty good. You look like a bona fide frontline investigator now. You're looking quite dapper yourself. Your posture seems a lot better. Is the ballroom dancing paying off? You should give it a try when you're still young. You'd be a hit with the ladies, a real babe magnet. Oishi had retired and moved to Sapporo, and of all things had started taking ballroom dancing lessons. He had apparently gotten really into it, and had decided to spend the rest of his life devoted to that hobby. He was aiming to get his instructor's qualifications before he hit 80, and live out his old age dandily. I let myself into Oishi's car, and we headed out towards the hot spring. I had originally intended to crash at Oishi's place, but Oishi was quite obstinate that his home wasn't as suitable for that, so it came to this. At this inn, we relaxed while soaking in the hot springs, reminiscing about the time. We played mahjong together in Himatsubushi. It seemed that to celebrate our reunion, Oishi had looked for people who could play. But unable to find a suitable candidate, we had to give up on putting together a table. As we drank together, we excitedly recounted our exploits during the final manhunt. Did they end up catching those two guys? Nope. In the end, the search team never found them. They were probably hidden by the villagers and sent overseas or somewhere else far away to lay low for a bit. Oishi-san, if I remember correctly, you managed to grab one of their guns, didn't you? Did you learn anything from that? It was a Chinese-made military pistol. It's probably from the ones the gang's Kansai managed to smuggle in a ton of. We tried to get a match from the rifling, but it didn't show up any other cases. How about on your end? After that, I was removed from the front lines, so I don't know much. In the end, it seems like everything was settled under the veil of secrecy. Oishi smiled wryly as he sipped his chilled drink. What happened after that sure was tough, huh? This will be 7 years now? Yeah. We held a memorial service a few days ago. I have become estranged with my father-in-law lately. So it was rough getting everything ready. Oh. Well, that's... After... Did my wife and child both die during childbirth? Was literally the phone call I was about to make would have been my last chance to ever even talk to her. What exactly occurred? Well, I suppose we'll call that a video for a moment, and then we'll return to the story of Anakin Skywalker and Hinamizawa another time. I hope everyone out there had a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.